and I'm the Regional General Manager for our small business customers at Westpac. It's so great to be back here today, the next webinar in the Westpac Ruby and PepTalkHer monthly webinar series. As my title suggests, I'm particularly passionate about supporting women in small business, like many of you here today. So for some of you who are new to Ruby Connection, it's Westpac's online community for women. It's a central platform where like-minded women can come together, become more financially confident and empowered about what they can achieve for their futures. We are particularly excited about this session today with Melissa and Meggie to talk all things small business finance. You can also learn more about personal finance with Melissa on the Westpac and Mamma podcast, What the Finance, which we'll share the link in the follow-up email. I know there'll be many takeaways from this session that we can continue to share amongst our networks, friends and women alike, to help us all strive for gender equity and boosting financial confidence in all women. Thank you, everyone. No doubt you will enjoy. And over to you, Meggie.
Thank you so much, Christine, and a big hello to everyone who is joining us today. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to learn about all things finance and particularly how it relates to your small business. Melissa Browne, it is so good to be here with you today. You're a very busy lady.
I'm really well. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, it's a treat. Now, listen, your resume, your accomplishments go on. You're a former accountant. You actually used to work for Westpac, which I only just realized. Yeah. That's not why you're here, but
no, for a red hot moment. Yeah.
A red hot moment. And now, you've got a very successful firm. You've written multiple books. You've got a bunch of amazing online courses, which we're going to talk later. Talk me through money. Like, why is it your jam? Why did you get interested in this space?
Well, it's funny. Someone asked me recently, they said, why are you passionate about money and finances? How did you become so passionate about that? And I think I upset them because I said, actually, I'm not. I'm not passionate about money. I'm passionate about the effects that financial empowerment can bring. So that's why I'm interested in money, and I dig in and I want to both learn how to be financially educated myself, but also why I financially educate others, because I know the transformative power that having your own finances and having that financial independence can bring, which is why I'm passionate about talking about it.
I love this, and I'm so aligned with you on this fact. I founded a company called PepTalkHer, which mission is all around closing the gender pay gap. And similarly to you, like for me, it's like if you get paid your worth, if you get paid more money, not only do you have more in your pocket now, but when you retire, you're going to have that financial security that we all crave. And fun/very unfun fact: one of the fastest growing groups of homelessness in Australia is actually women over the age of 55, which Mel, you know all about from the work that you do as well.
Absolutely. And the thing that, especially if you're younger, that can seem so far away. You think, I've got plenty of time to sort that out. But trust me, it comes so fast. And what we want to be careful of is the life that we're living now, the freedom and the choices and everything we have now. We want to have those all throughout our life. And so that's why things like superannuation and paying yourself appropriately and understanding finances is so important, so that we can look after ourselves and have a good time now, but also all throughout our life.
Down the track as well. Absolutely. Now, the new podcast that you're hosting with one of my favorite actresses, Halsey Sharda. She's amazing.
Which we are all, I think it's one step away from both Chris Hemsworth and Tom Cruise now because of who she's worked with. So that's, I'm accepting that. I'm embracing
that. I love that for you, Mel. That's awesome. You're basically best mates with the Hemsworth brothers, not pretty much at all.
Yeah.
That's so cool. So your podcast, which is sponsored by Westpac, if you haven't checked it out, please do. It's a must listen. It's super practical. It's called What the Finance. And when I was listening to it, I was actually struck by, yes, it was informative. Yes, I learned something, but also the two of you were super honest, very vulnerable, which I think is, frankly, you don't see a lot of that. And you both talk about the highs and lows, the mistakes, the obsession with Haig's chocolate, which I share.
I'm still waiting for their call, by the way.
If you missed the episode, Haig's chocolate makes a big coming. Yeah, totally. But it's interesting to me, a story, you know, that comes out is from your background, Mel, when you went through a divorce, the process that you went through, and I guess some of the money blocks that you found, that you identified in yourself. Could you share that story with us before we sort of jump into some of the more business related topics?
Yeah, absolutely. And part of the reason why it was so important for me to be vulnerable, and why I'm not just vulnerable on what the finance, I'm vulnerable whenever I'm asked these questions, is because I don't want people to look at people like myself and go, well, she's got it all together and that's very nice for her, but you don't understand my financial situation. You could never come back from this, or you don't understand the story that I've had to grow up with, or the stupid financial mistakes that I've had made. And I tell those stories because both I'm a Western suburbs bogan, and I have absolutely made stupid financial choices all the way through. And one of the biggest ones is when I was 33, I divorced from my then husband. And divorce is such an emotional time, and I'm so not an emotional person. And he made a throwaway line to me where he's a good bloke, but he said in the heat of the moment, "You're never going to make it on your own." And as a result of him saying that, I did the, well, screw you. That's my bogan just coming out, and gave the entire divorce proceeds to charity, to Opportunity International, but not just the entire divorce proceeds. I cleared everything out of every bank account I had. So my business bank account, my personal bank accounts, I wanted to start from scratch so that he could never say, "You're there because of me." And I wanted to ring them back up the next day and say, "So, do you know how I gave you that money?" I would kind of like a lot of it back because I didn't keep money for bond. I didn't keep money for wages. I didn't keep money for super. I didn't keep money for tax. I mean, I'm an accountant. I didn't keep money for taxes. And it took me a good couple of years to come back from that, including I had to, you do some things in your 20s that are cute, like living with friends. At 33, I moved into a frat house with 6 friends, where I lived down in the basement in a teeny tiny little room, because that's the only way I had to come back from that. And I'm so grateful that I could do that. But the result of that financial decision and that emotional decision set me back so far. And the reason I tell that story is because if I did that, someone who is supposed to be good with money, someone who is supposed to understand money, if I can make emotional decisions that are not right for me, that hurt me, then how do other people cope with that? And I guess the difference is I had the wherewithal and the financial knowledge to come back from that. But what I know is a lot of women make those decisions, and men make these decisions, and then don't know how to come back from that. And so kind of put their head in the sand and ostrich it. And part of the reason I also tell that story is because I'm now in my 40s and I now have the option to work or not. So I tell the story to show that, hey, I made stupid financial mistakes and big ones, but also I came back from it and now I'm living a life by design where I have so much choice and so much options. And I want to give people hope that they can do that too.
I love that idea of the life by design that you're living. And I'm sure that everyone on the call here today craves that and strives for that. And I appreciate you sharing that, Mel. And I'd love to put a question out to everyone. Feel free to pop it in the chat. Let us know, have you made a silly mistake with money? I've got to admit, Mel, not proud to say it, but sometimes when I'm a bit freaked out about how the business is going, I just don't look at the bank account and I don't look at my zero accounting file. I just kind of bury my head in the sand. If anyone can relate, put a message in the chat.
I reckon you will not be alone with that one. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So is this something that am I the only one that ostrich buries their head in the sand? Does this happen? Okay.
Absolutely. And it depends on your personality. So I call them money types. So it depends on how you are inherently wired, but it also depends on your money story and those messages and myths you've you've picked up and you carry with you potentially as to how you react to stress or how you react to finances. You know, I know some women, even where they won't, when it comes to their business, they use words like just and, oh, you know, it's just a home-based business, or it's my baby. And you can't hurt your baby, you can't sell your baby, you can't get rid of your baby. And using words like that and minimizing and keep it small. So you may be someone that is facing your zero file and is not procrastinating, but you could be using minimizing words that are just as harmful to your finances. So I think it's being aware of all of those things and being conscious of that, and then choosing what you're going to do instead. That's my hobby horse, by the way. I'm really, that's really passionate about that.
Yeah, because the words that we use to describe ourselves, to describe our business, become our reality, right? Because we listen to that story on repeat. We're listening to our thoughts 24/7, for better or worse. So that's very interesting. And I know, Mel, you know, when you started your entrepreneurial journey, one of the stories you've told in the past that I've heard you say is that you were with some friends and you said, you know, one day I want to run a 7-figure business. Like, I want to be a millionaire. And everyone kind of looked at you like you were a bit like, how dare you? Can you share that story? Because I think there's probably
absolutely. Yeah, so it was one of those things where there was women in corporate that were used to holding and handling big sums. There were women in business, and we were all talking about our goals for that year. And, you know, everyone was talking, they were talking about goals, but no one was talking numbers. And I'm like, this was quite a number of years ago. I'm like, come on, let's just talk about it. So I said, well, actually, I wanted to do $1 million. And they just looked at me like, ooh, okay, that's a little. And I could just see the, you know, if they had thought bubbles above their head, I reckon they would have said, well, it's a bit selfish, or, oh, gee, you know, you think a little bit much of yourself, or, oh, I don't know, that's okay. Like, you could see it on their faces. But interestingly, a couple of them came up to me afterwards and went, I wouldn't mind that. Like, maybe, or even not $1 million, but, oh, I wouldn't mind making X amount. And they were happy to tell me privately what they were going to do, but they wouldn't share it publicly. And it's when it comes to money, I tell the story once, you know, would you rather have and whether it's business finances or personal finances, would you rather have them leaked online, or would you rather accidentally flash a crowd and get naked? I imagine most people would rather flash than they would show the vulnerability of their finances, because there is so much shame and stories and messages wrapped around that. And I think that's where we need to acknowledge that and say, right, that is a story, that is a myth, that is a message that I've received, and I'm going to let go, and I'm going to live life. And you know what, you may have a home-based business, but let's remove the word just from it. And let's actually make that home-based business as freaking profitable and successful as it can be, because we don't spend all this blood, sweat, and tears on these businesses unless we make them profitable and successful.
Absolutely. And we want to give everyone on the call today permission to say out loud, feel free to pop it in the chat. If you want to be turning over a 7-figure business, whether it's this financial year, next, in 3-4 years, pop it in the chat. We would love to support you and cheer you on, because, you know, this is a safe space to talk about money and to dream big. So Mel, I feel like is one of the mistakes that you see small businesses and indeed individuals as well making is kind of their perception of money is not in I guess like an abundant place. They kind of are playing small. They're thinking, I'm just going to turn over 30 grand, or I'm just going to do this, or I'll just become break even, and that's enough for me. Is it, do we need to shift our mindset before we can get into the semantics of the nuts and bolts of it all?
I think there's a couple of different things. I think that women often start a business to solve a need, whereas men will often start a business to make money. So they're starting a business to solve a need, or because, you know, they're home. It might be during that period of time when they're having babies, and I don't want to go and do corporate. I'll now start this thing which will bring in a bit of income for my family. And I also think that when we see women as successful businesses, we also often think they're the unicorn. Whereas it's like, come on, rather than them being the unicorn, you know, women starting businesses that are turning over $1 million, I think the stats are that it's less than 5% or something teeny tiny.
You're quite
so
right.
We're not,
it is. Yeah.
Yeah. So we're not seeing that. Personally, I have I have an accounting firm that turned over 7 figures and sold for 7, a preschool that did the same, and on my way to doing a third. You know, if I can do it 3 times, you can do it once. And I don't say that to be arrogant. I say that so you can go, oh God, she doesn't seem that intelligent. She doesn't seem that extraordinary. She's from the Western suburbs. She doesn't have the fancy school or the networks or the connections or the 3 degrees. If she can do it, I can do it. And I think
you seem very successful to me. No need to put yourself down. We're going to rewire that for you today as well.
But I say that because trust me, my self-confidence is quite healthy. But the reason I said that is because that's potentially what other people are thinking. So it's saying it out loud to demystify that.
No, you're quite right. And I can see from the comments as well, people are really appreciating this. We've got a lot of millionaires in the making, if not already. We've got Carolina, we've got Maddie, we've got Anshu as well. Everyone's talking about, you know, they're heading towards that 7-figure mark, which, by the way, may not be your aspiration. There's also nothing wrong with turning over.
Absolutely.
You know, 10 grand, 30 grand, 75,000.
But it's actually choosing what you want to. You know, if I talk to female business owners, I'll often say, so what are you shooting for? How much do you want to make? And they'll go, oh, you know, no, that's not an answer. How much do we want to aim for? Because if you decide to aim for 250, for example, you might not hit 250, but you might hit 200, which might be so much further than what you intended. Or you could easily shoot past that. And a lot of the research is around when we see someone else doing it, we then can get there ourselves. So it's true. Realizing that, okay, well, if she can do it, then yeah.
And again, you know, Ruby Connection really is a community that's here to support all of you in your journey. So if you would like us to hold you accountable, we will email you a month from now to keep you on track with your revenue goal. You can privately DM it to me, or you can put it in the general chat. It's completely up to you. If you've got questions for Mel, pop them in the chat too, and we're going to get to as many of those as possible. Mel, I've had one question come through, which is golden rules for managing small business finance. If you had to give me one tip today that I could kind of put in place, what would the top rule be that I should do for my business, PepTalkHer, for example?
I don't know that I would just have one. I hate being limited to just one.
You can have 2 or 3.
Thank you. Yeah. So golden rule is you got to look at your numbers. If you may be avoiding them up till now, you may be a creative and say, yeah, but I'm not a numbers person, Mel. Yeah, you are. You know, I'm not suggesting you need year 12 maths. My dirty little secret is I didn't do year 12 maths. A teacher once said to me, I went from unit 3 unit to 4 unit to 3 unit to 2 unit. And the maths teacher said, well, you may as well not bother. I went, is that an option? And so stop. So you only need year 5, year 6 maths and not even that.
Love that. So
it's really important that you understand the numbers, because if you're not looking at the numbers regularly, then you can't actually move towards something. So one would be understand your numbers. But number 2, I think, is also to understand the difference between activity and results. So there's a saying that revenue is vanity, profit is sanity, cash is reality. So you may be looking at your numbers and all you're looking at is sales. Whereas what we want to do is, yes, we want to look at the numbers regularly. Yes, we want to have goals as to where they want to be, but we also need to understand the activity we should be doing today to implement the results that we want. So for example, one of my activities as the head of the accounting firm that I ran was I had to have at least 4 meetings a week with suppliers or prospective clients. That was one of my activities for leads. If I was in the office just sitting there twiddling my thumbs, my staff would say, why are you here so much? Shouldn't you be out there hunting and gathering? So it's understanding both the numbers and the activity.
Okay, I love that. Numbers and activity. If you're not a maths whiz, don't worry, you can still be a business whiz. I hated maths at high school, so it made me feel better hearing you say that. Now, what about personal versus business? So maybe you've got a business credit card, maybe you occasionally may or may not put a few personal things on. Like, how do we keep them separate? Like,
so I don't care if you're a sole trader, if you're a company, if you're a trust, get into the great, or it also doesn't matter if your business is still at a hobby stage, or if it's a business. I'm a fan of getting into the habit early of having your business accounts and having your personal accounts. So keeping them really separate. And it also means it's easier so that as it gets bigger, and hear how I didn't say if it gets bigger, I said as it gets bigger.
Love that.
We can then pay ourselves from the business account to our personal account and get used to paying ourselves a wage and paying ourselves super. So I'm a fan of having a business bank account and a business tax account. So at least 2 bank accounts. And maybe you'll have a credit card there. I'm not a huge fan of credit. And then over personally, we'll have an everyday account, a bills account, and a savings account, so that we have this beautiful habit of both. We don't want to have personal finances sorted and businesses as a mess. And we don't want to just be eating and dipping into the business account all the time.
Yeah.
Really want them separate.
No, that's such good advice. And your books talk about this in further detail. People want to jump into this further. Also, they talk a lot about the power of automating this, right? Of just like getting the systems in place. You don't have to freak out every single week. There's these things called automatic transfers. It's amazing.
Yeah.
So you can set
your
it
bank
up.
will be able to sort that out for you.
They will. And Christina Kim, who did the fabulous introduction for us today from Westpac, she and the team are really, really helpful. If you don't have a business bank account yet, if you're still running it through your personal account, jump into your local Westpac.
Make that your action item. Yeah.
That's a really good action item. Go down to the branch or just jump online and get the info you need, fill out the forms and get it started. You know, it feels daunting, but it's not. Trust me, I've done it. It's not too bad. Probably put aside maybe 10, 15 minutes and you'll be good to go. That's really great advice. So, okay, we're coming up to the end of financial year as well. Dreaded tax time. Is there anything that we should be doing now to kind of prepare to make sure that we take advantage of, you know, certain tax deductions and things that have to be done in the financial year?
So I guess a couple of things. One is do not be sucked in by spend to get a tax deduction. So you will see tax ads galore at the moment saying spend and save, spend and save. You only get a 70% or 60% tax deduction. You don't get it all back on tax. So let's not spend money just to get a tax deduction. But secondly, start looking at your numbers now. So when I used to have my accounting firm, I'd be doing tax planning with clients now, so that we did something about our taxes rather than getting to August, September and going, oh, okay, I didn't realize I was up for that. So by doing some planning now, it might be as simple as if you have a Xero file or a MyOb file or a Reckon file, running off your profit and loss, seeing if there is a profit there, and then deciding what you might want to do about that, or talking to your accountant about what a plan for that is. If you haven't put superannuation away for the year yet and you have a profit there, it might be choosing to do something about that now. If you've made no profit, it might be still choosing to pay some super and getting the co-contribution. But now is also a beautiful time to set up for 2022 and figure out both what do I want to do now for tax and tax savings and super, but also what's my plan for next year? What goals, this has been such a strange year, 2021, and it would have been impossible to plan for. But we have a little bit of now understanding of what the world's going to look like. So let's start to put some thought and some care into what's my goals for next year, and then what's my action steps to make that come true.
I love that. That's such good advice. So make sure that everyone gets on top of that. And in fact, Mel, I know that one of the things that you'd suggest, the one action item that people can do today, if you don't already have a bank account, that's one thing.
I do that.
All of us, you want us to look at the numbers, look under the hood and take a look.
Which if you're keeping a spreadsheet, that just doesn't really work. There's so many technology solutions now. So the 3 big ones are Reckon, Xero and MyOb. They will all have a cheap version where I think Reckon is one that's $5 a month. Xero is my preference, but they're all great. So have something like that with your business accounts so you can actually understand your numbers.
And then one piece of advice that a coach gave me, which frankly was one of the best things I ever did, was she's like, you have to start paying yourself. And I was like,
Absolutely.
yeah. But I was like, no, I've got stuff and I've got expenses and there's what if we go insolvent and like, but actually it's amazing because, you know, you work hard, you should be paid and you get to see the money coming in. But it also is funny, as soon as I did that, guess what? The money started coming in to cover the pay.
Yeah. And I think now's a beautiful time to decide that. How much do I want to be paid next year? And then even if it's tiny, just start. And even if you're a sole trader and you're thinking, yeah, but I don't pay myself a wage, get into the habit of it. So start transferring that money across and living to what you're sending yourself across. But also, as you said, I'm a fan of profits first. How much do I want to get paid? What profit do I want to make? And then work it back. That means I need to make this amount of sales so I can get paid this much. Great, let's go.
And it's funny you say that, actually. Another amazing business owner, similar to yourself, Mel, Sarah Ellison, she runs an amazing furniture label. Check it out if you haven't seen it already. But she talks about, her accountant says the same thing as you, that like revenue numbers are really just for show. The profit is what we should be excited about.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And and that's what your bank's going to care about as well. So you go for loans, whether that's if you're going for a home loan, if you're going for business loan, you know, I know some people that will say, oh, I don't want to make a profit because then I'll pay tax. We want to be paying some tax so that we can be building assets, so that we can be building personal wealth, so that we have choice. So yes, it's actually really important to figure out, what profit do I want? What wage do I want? And then work it back. Because you're right, sales is vanity. It's nice to have, and it's important, but it's a vanity metric.
And it's funny, and it wasn't until she said that to me, I was like, oh, that's actually true. Like the profit, the take home, the bit that I get to keep or that I get to share around with the team, that's what's more exciting.
Yeah.
And I will say, you know, I hate numbers. I hate maths. My accountants know it's not my jam. But since bringing on a bookkeeper and an accountant, game changer.
Like, you don't have to do the everyday. You're just reading the report and then changing and implementing as a result. Yeah.
And it's amazing. Just I get these profit and loss statements and I just read them and someone else pays people. It's like, it's quite game changing. And I was always like, I can't afford it. It's too expensive. And I will say it's honestly,
you can't afford not to. Yeah.
I think you're right, Mel. I really do. And I wish I'd learned that earlier, but paying it forward to everyone here today. I want to be conscious of everyone's time because we know that time is precious, but quick question for those of us considering selling a business.
Yes.
What are some of the things that we should think about now from the outset if you're thinking you'd like to be quiet or you'd like to sell, you know, in the next sort of 1 to 5 years?
So having been through this process recently, there are a number and helped so many clients through it. There's a number of things. One, what do you want for it? So you need to start thinking about how much do you want to sell it for? And obviously, just because you want to sell it for that number doesn't mean that will happen, but it's also being really careful so that you build to that. So one, what do you want to sell it for? Two, is it saleable? Do you actually have something to sell? Because if it's just you doing some consulting, you actually might not have anything to sell. So that might be your impetus to say, you know what? Maybe if I put some systems and processes and some things in place, then my database and my systems could be attractive and I could therefore sell it. So is it saleable? What are you selling? And that what are you selling question is really important. So Adore Beauty in Australia, they listed on the ASX. What they were selling should have been an e-tailer. It should have just been a retailer, and they should have had a multiple of, you know, maybe 4 or 5. Kate understood they were selling tech. So they got valued as a tech company, and she got the multiple she wanted and had an oversubscribed sale because of that. So understanding what you are selling is also really important. And she had people telling her, no, that won't work. Really important to understand what you're selling. Systems, processes, customers, people, and then understand what the exit strategy is and you earn out. So is someone internally going to be able to buy it? Is that going to be my exit strategy? Would this large ASX company, are they going to be the one to buy it? Is that my exit strategy? Start to think about who my buyer might be, so that you're making it attractive for them, and maybe even having those conversations.
Absolutely. And starting to build those relationships with people who may be interested in your product or your email list or your technology or your solution, a lot of, it's great to see Kate and, SJ Katini from Tiny Beans listing on the ASX. I'm loving it. There's rumors that might happen with another big Aussie tech company soon. But, I think it's also important to remember that a lot of very small companies sell too.
Yes.
And it is possible. Because I think sometimes people think it's like, no one would ever buy me. But actually, Mel, you see it all the time.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you don't have to sell your whole company. I had a client recently, it was a graphic design business that was also doing website. And she just was wanting to build some tech and went, the websites just don't light me up. So we actually carved it up and sold that. She got almost 6 figures for that, for just a teeny part of her business, because the client base was so attractive to someone else that bought it. So you don't even have to sell the whole business. You can sell a part of your business so that you can concentrate on the bit of your business that you love. So it's understanding that as well.
Totally. And I think, that's the benefit of working with people like Mel, with people, other accountants, financial planners who can kind of do some of that creative thinking and step back and say, well, hang on, you've got an email list of how many people that would actually be very beneficial to this business or to this, multinational, whoever it is.
Or do I want to not sell, but do I want to get investment and still keep ownership, but sell part of it? Or do I want to actually not sell? I just need funding for this idea that I've got. There's so many different ways we can skin a cat. And it's being aware of all the different options.
That's so true. Now, listen, I'm very strict on time, but I'm going to make an exception because I've got a lot of questions coming through. So I'm just going to take 2 more questions.
Sure.
If anyone's got any last minute questions, pop them in the chat. Mel, I think your point there about sometimes you just need an injection of funds to scale is a good one. There's crowdfunding these days. It doesn't have to be VC. It could be. There's government grants, as we've seen with the Boosting Female Founders grant. If you haven't checked that out, the most recent round has just closed, but I think they open it twice a year. So take a look at grants as well. But now a couple of questions coming through for people who want to scale their business. So a couple of people have said they're sort of almost at 6 figures or they're early 6 figures and they want to kind of get to that next level. Do you have any advice from a financial perspective on the best way to do that?
So one of the things that I did and that I talk to clients about is if you don't see other people doing it, then sometimes it's hard to be in that headspace where you're with others that are playing at smaller game, but you're wanting to play bigger. Certainly what I did is I put myself into a bigger pond. So I joined something called Entrepreneurs Organisation, which they have a incubator for people that want to get to 7 figures. And I knew that if I put myself in an environment where there was lots of businesses that were bigger, they would help me lift and I'd learn from them. So that was instrumental for me. For sometimes it might be getting a coach, or it might be putting yourself inside a program where you're being held accountable, where you're being taught. Because what I know is that it's a skill to run a business, and being passionate about your business can take you so far. But you actually need to learn how to run a great business. You need to learn about the pillars of people, strategy, execution, cash, and actually how to scale and build. So what you want to do is actually learn how to run and build a great business. When you get to that point where you're like, okay, I think I've taken it as far as I can. Now I need education and resource and accountability.
You're so right, Mel. Surrounding yourself with organizations, whether it's entrepreneurs organization or other accountability groups, masterminds, powerful, because you're in other people's energy. You get to learn from their success, observe their
mistakes.
And because it's like, let's learn from someone else's costly mistakes so I don't have to lose that money. And I think similar to having, a financial person on your business team to keep you accountable to finance goals, as you grow, and if you want to scale, to the few of you who sent me through those questions, thank you. It's important to have that squad around you, whether it's a Facebook ad specialist, whether it's a mindset coach. I've got an accountability coach, for better or worse. I need it. I have one. Having people that can support you in your weaknesses.
I agree.
Yeah, it's it's really the only way, because you only know what you know, right?
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
And we're not taught about finances at school. We're not necessarily taught about business if we're at school, or if we're getting further education. And it's recognizing it's a skill and deciding to level up.
The level up is the piece. We are excited for everyone on the call here to level up. Again, feel free to pop your goals and your aspirations financially into the chat. You can DM it directly to me if you like. I'll follow up with you in a month to hold you accountable. Mel, a couple of people wanting to stay in touch with you. You've got amazing courses. What's the best way for people to connect?
Yeah, so if you're on Instagram, I'm More Money for Shoes, which will potentially then give away what my weakness is. Head to melissabrowne.courses. I like to say I'm the fancy Browne. I've got an E on my name. And there I've got both personal and business courses that you can do to help keep you accountable and level up. But yeah, I'm so happy I give away a lot of free content. So if you follow me on Insta, if you follow me on LinkedIn, then you'll be able to, or if you subscribe to my Monday Money Hacks newsletter on my site, you're going to receive some information and at least start maybe thinking a little bit differently.
I love that, Mel. And the stuff on your group, on your website is very useful. A lot of it's free. There's some amazing paid courses as well. So if you're wanting to sort of, sort through all of the plethora of info out there, head to Mel's courses page, super valuable stuff. Don't forget to check out her podcast as well.
Yes.
It's called What the Finance. It's sponsored by the fabulous team at Westpac. So check it out. Episodes drop every week. Is that right, Mel? Have I got that right?
Yeah, and I think we're on our last one. So there's 8 weeks all up. So we cover everything from mindset to super to shares to business and more. So, and relationships is the very last one, where we've got a lawyer on to talk about money and relationships and the legal aspect, which is a very cool conversation.
And we should do a whole conversation on that with you, Mel, some other time.
Oh, yeah.
That's a minefield.
Oh, I love that conversation. Absolutely.
Absolutely. And I think just quickly, one thing we didn't get time to talk about because we had so many wonderful questions. Superannuation. Mel, yes. What's your top tip on super for people who own their own business?
So as you said, we already know that women at most risk of homelessness are age over 55. We also are the ones with the lowest super. So my tip, if you're running a business, is to pay super as if you were in corporate. So if you could have gone and got a salary of 150, but you're choosing to only pay yourself 50 in your business, pay yourself super at the 90. At the very least, if you're going, Mel, I don't have any profit, at least get the co-contribution and pay the $1,000 to get the government contribution. So super is something that automate it for yourself, even if you're a sole trader, but just put your own financial oxygen mask on, stop rescuing everyone else and start paying it for yourself. Another big platform for me where I get really about. Can you tell?
Such good advice, Mel. Such good advice. So what we're going to do after today's session, if we don't already, we're opening a Westpac business bank account. We're looking under the hood. We're going to end this call and we're going to look at our numbers. It's going to be awkward, but we're going to do it anyway. We're going to pay ourselves, we're going to pay ourselves super, and we're also going to level up our mindset towards what goal could we achieve in the next 6, 12 months, 24 months. Like, put it out there, start talking to your friends, your colleagues, your mentors about it. Let's make this happen. Keep us in the loop. If anyone wants some info on some other accountability groups, I'm happy to connect you with some great organizations. I'm hello@PepTalkHer.com. You can reach me there. Check out Mel's courses on her website. They are amazing. And don't forget, the Ruby Connection community is here to serve you and support you in your business and personal finance journey. Mel, I want to keep chatting for hours, but I'm going to let everyone get back to work. Sadly.
I know, right? Yeah, the bosses are going, come on. The bosses, i.e. you all, because you're your bosses. Come on.
Exactly.
It was such a fun combo. Thank you.
This was so great, Mel. And I'm going to keep listening to the podcast. It's such a treat. Honestly, do yourself a favor. Send it to your friends. They'll really enjoy it. It's a non-judgmental conversation, very practical. Mel, thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate you.
You're so welcome. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Mel. I'm Meggie Palmer. I'm the founder of PepTalkHer. This has been a delight. If you'd like to stay in touch, make sure you sign up to our free 5-day Know Your Worth challenge. peptalkher.com/challenge. Head to the Ruby Connection website as well and check out all the amazing personal finance and small business resources that are on there for free as well. We will see you all next month. Thank you so much for joining us. Bye, everyone.